So welcome to meeting number 3, I think we're at, of the Match Mentoring Series, a small but mighty group. And we've been happy to be able to review most of your personal statements. So we can talk about anything that you are wondering about as we're getting pretty close to submitting your materials to actually apply for the match. So very exciting, coming up in just a couple weeks, a little bit more, I guess like 3 weeks. So before we move directly to personal statements, do any of you have any particular questions? I was very happy to read everybody's personal statement and note a profound, excuse me, absence of grammatical and other sorts of small errors like that. Really important. So you've been doing your homework to get everything checked out. So in the personal statements, I saw that in general, y'all were avoiding just repeating what it says in your CV, which is important, and giving us some reasons why you yourselves are well suited to be new interns at your programs. That your personal statement is sort of like the interview before the interview. So it gives folks an opportunity to read some juicy tidbits about you that if your application were sort of awesome, like all of them are, this is going to let them know why you in particular are someone that they'd really want to talk to. And it's an opportunity to share what really makes you special, what really energizes you, what you think you will uniquely bring to your training program. And I think that all of you did a nice job with that. Let's take advantage of the fact that we have Jack Gordon with us for the first time in one of these meetings this year, who is, Jack, you're the 3rd year, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So actually, let me just be quiet and let you introduce yourself if you don't mind, and then see if these guys have any particular questions from your vantage point.
Okay. I'm a 3rd-year family medicine resident at the Greater Lawrence Family Health Center. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. We're north of Boston, about 30 minutes. It's a community health center, like an FQHC, partnered with a community hospital, very cool residency. I'm happy to speak on subjects like family med residencies, FQHCs, smaller community programs, stuff like that. And what else? We're a 4-year family med program. That's kind of interesting. I'm happy to field questions on that. My area of focus is addiction medicine. I remember one of you was really into that. So if you want to talk more about that too at some point, that would be cool. Gosh, when I applied during the like old interviewing style or like old system where you would go to interviews, and I think there's so much change that I don't even know how helpful or current or up to date even my perspective is, but some things don't change that much, so hopefully we'll be able to give you some advice on the personal statements.
Jack, do you have, as we're thinking about, if you think back on when you were preparing your application for residency match, do you have any tidbits you can think of about your CV, about your personal statement, about thinking about where to apply for these guys who are just stepping into that space?
Great question. So I just helped my partner apply for the match last year. And I think the personal statement was the part that we spent the most time and energy and thought on, because writing a personal statement is really hard. You have to put so much effort into it. And like, it's more than just like clicking a box like, oh, yes, this is my research experience and this is my community experience. And it was also the thing we argued about the most. And it can be difficult to talk about these super personal things. I will say that on the other end, as like I sometimes participate in evaluating the applicants. I don't evaluate every single applicant that comes to our residency. On the other end, we don't necessarily spend as much time reading them as you will writing them. I mean, that's obvious, but I think the big takeaway is that I read the statements and I get it like a gestalt of what the residents like, and then think of maybe some questions to ask the residents during the interview. But a lot of our residency is transitioning to what is it called? All the questions are the same for every applicant, a formalized or standardized interview, and many residencies are as well. So instead of, I think, the old way where you would write in your personal statement and it would be conversation fodder, sometimes in the personal statement for some residencies, it might be the last chance you get to highlight some aspect of your your personality, your experiences, your interests, the reason why you want to go into specialty, because they may not be able to ask you things in the interview if they're doing a standardized interview. I think I don't want to like stress people out, but I think that this is kind of a sign of the times, and we may want to start thinking about making more focused personal statements for different programs to like maybe highlight some things that we don't think are likely to come up if they're known to have standardized interviews. Okay, that was a lot. Sorry, was any of that helpful? Is anyone here thinking about dual applying like family med and med peds, or internal med peds, internal med family?
Well, I
Okay.
think, Raffia, you're co-applying, right? You're applying in primary care, internal, and family, right?
Yes, sorry, I couldn't figure out my mute button wasn't working. Yes, I'm applying to internal med and family med. And I guess when you're talking about more personalized personal statements, do you mean just adding a paragraph at the end or that, or do you mean like do you have any recommendations about how to personalize it best?
You know, sometimes it is just a paragraph at the end. That's been my experience. Some residencies will specifically ask, when you go on their website, you'll see like we ask for a personalized or like personalized personal statement or whatever you want to call it, like a personal statement that is tailored to that residency. And I think when I applied, I did just a paragraph at the end. And I think the Greater Lawrence actually was one where I did that and I matched here. So that's probably an okay strategy. There's other times if there's a residency you really, really want to interview at and rank highly, then you may want to go a little bit further. I think that if you're applying to specialties, it's probably a good idea to just maybe have one personal statement for each. Unless they're like really similar, like primary care, internal medicine, and family medicine are pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
Might be still a good idea to just have one for each.
I mean, you need to be careful. So, you know, having read some of these, and over the years, having read many personal statements, if your personal statement says like, I want to go into family medicine because, you know, it aligns with my values, and then you send that personal statement to an internal medicine program, they're going to be like, well, this is weird. This person wants to be a family doctor. So at the very least, go through and make those kinds of minor changes to ensure that there's consistency between what your personal statement says and the specialty to which you are applying within the statement. Super important.
Yes, details matter. And Jack, I don't know if this is your understanding, but for me, what I've been hearing about the standardized interview, which hasn't happened for Harvard Medical School, but I think it will, is it's a way to avoid bias. So if you ask the same questions of every person, then you're less likely to be trapped in conscious or unconscious bias with a given applicant. So that part is good. The sad part is what Jack said, that you might not get to. I love, for example, interviewing applicants and reading their personal statement and picking little things out of that I want to know more about. So the sign of, as you said, a sign of the times.